He disagrees on everything. And monitoring of our carbon goals is being done, so really year on year. And he determines which steps, what's the pathway to achieve these targets that are both the emissions scope 3 that we're talking about today, but also the emissions that we have in our company, what we call scope 1 and 2 emissions, which are, the emissions from our factories. He has been a very stable force, a little bit hidden sometimes. I'm so happy I convinced him to get on stage today, of climate action in our company for many years. Like we go also a long way back. But first, Jeroen, come to the stage and kick off the presentation.
Yes. Well, so far it was about history, but now it's about looking ahead. So that is actually the topic of this last presentation. What are our future plans and maybe also dreams? How do we go from 2019 onwards, or did we already do, of course, but let's see, how do we go into the future? Well, then first this slide. So this is the results you already saw with the 1.1% reduction, the 35% reduction over 30 years is 1.1% reduction per year. So if it continues, that's the question, coming back to my conclusion slide on farms, how farms develop. Will this continue? That is actually the question. And the second, of course, was in the previous presentation was, is that enough? Well, for FrieslandCampina, it is not, because we set an intermediate target. So we want to go to climate neutral in 2050. But we set an intermediate target, that is the green line that you see here, which is actually doubling the speed we saw in the history. So 2.2% reduction per year towards 2030. After 2030, I think we will evaluate how we go to 2050, but this is what we set so far and is our target. And this is, of course, work in progress, but then you might wonder what is actually in progress, then what are you doing? Well, first of all, so if we want to do this, we have to get the farmers into action. And how do we do this? Well, one of the things that was already next to the challenge of making a paper, making farm-specific monitoring was another challenge that we addressed, I think, already a few years ago, but from 2017 onwards and to 2018 onwards for every Dutch dairy farmer, we monitor farm-specific carbon footprint of raw milk already. So each farmer knows his carbon footprint of raw milk and also the details about this. That is really the starting point, of course, for a farm to think, okay, what is it? What can I do about it? So that is how we started, and this is what you see as a figure. So this is most recent results. You see a lot of variation, of course. So this is on the x-axis. It's 9,500 farms. And on the y-axis, of course, the carbon footprint in grams of CO2 per kilogram of fat and protein corrected milk. So you see that there's a lot of variation. And then you also start wondering, well, as just you in the audience, what is the difference? Why are they different? Well, that is actually what also happens if you put farmers into a group, for example. I'd rather have a similar farm as you, but you have a lower carbon footprint. Now, this is what we try to initiate with farm-specific footprint monitoring, compare, try to learn from each other, learn from the data what you could do. That is the first thing. So this is what we introduced. So now you know where you are, you know your hotspot, and you know what you really should address first. Then, of course, we can pose targets to our farmers, but we should also support them. So what can we do about them getting in? How can we get them into action? We're doing a lot of things. So here's just 4 examples of these. Of the most recent example, we're doing a project that is called Acceleration on Climate. So that's actually meant to help farmers. That's the core of it. So on the left topic, we, for example, just introduced the infographic. So on MilkWeb or internal, what shall we call it, Facebook for farmers. And let's not make this comparison, but you understand how this works. So it's about knowledge transfer there. So there's an infographic on all the, let's say, the 5 head categories, as we also presented in our paper. Then you can deep dive into these 5 head categories. What are the measures? What can I do? What are the details about these measures? What can I expect in terms of reduction? So this is all available for them at this stage. Then there's a flyer. So there's more or less the same information, but I think next week, isn't it, Karen? Yeah, so the same information, so all the measures on all the categories with explanation on reduction potential will be on the doorstep of all of our member farmers to help them to initiate, let's say, the reduction and work on climate. So I think we should rather be proud on this because we really will help, I think. And then, of course, this is never enough. So this is a kind of paper exercise, but these farmers, well, I know of quite a few of them, they will say, yeah, you state this in this flyer, but what does it mean for my farm? I want to know it more specifically. That is why we already introduced a few years ago our Friesland Campina maatregelen tool. That is not monitoring, but that is intended to test measures. And it's intended to test measures for the carbon footprint, but it's also intended to test measures on all the other indicators that we report, because we're talking today about climate, but of course our strategy at farms is also broader than that, and we do also stimulate or want them to be integrally sustainable, so also work on other topics, biodiversity, animal health and welfare, these kind of things. And then the last things also is that currently there's also workshops, so farmers can subscribe for different workshops. How do I reduce greenhouse gases? What is it about? What can I do? How does it work at my farm? These kind of things. So I think these are a lot of workshops already organized. I think 30 with 10 or 12 people already present. So this is a series of things we do. I think we do even more. We also, of course, also, San already hinted on it, on an individual basis. We also have to sometimes answer questions of farmers, which is really logical and quite a sometimes difficult topic in calculation. So these are just for the example what we do. And then what do we also do? This is the financial incentive. And I think this is also a recent development. This is the table that with all the things we reward farmers on. I won't go into details. I think it's too much for today. But what you have to remind of this is that we reward on different things on sustainability. It's climate, it's biodiversity, animal health and welfare, and also meadowing. These are the 4 topics with different indicators for these 4 things, but we reward all of them. So also not on one topic, but there's priority. The priority currently is on climate. So that is this one. For 2023, once we are also going to apply the new GBPs in kringloopwijzer, I have to stay into. Sorry for the online people. It's so difficult for me to stand still. So we are going to apply for 2023 the new GBPs, and then a reduction will really, if you really reduce, so get to 775, which would be equivalent to 900 nowadays with old GBPs. You get 1.5 euros per 100 kilogram of milk. And if you deliver, let's say on average farm, 1 million kilogram of milk, it's 15,000 euros. So it's significant. And I think that is really something that can help. And it's also something that can help to take the measures that really are not per se cost effective at this moment, but this will really help to boost. I think we saw before with also the introduction of Planet Proof, which also had a significant financial incentive, that then of course it also starts. In the end, they also have to make the business case, and then we hope to see the reduction. So this is the third thing that we did. So this is also linked to valorization that was also already mentioned. So we hope to get to also sell the reduction in the market, and then this, if this money goes on the pile for financial incentives again, we made a kind of perpetuum mobile which also helps. So the farmers reduce, we sell that in the market, there's money for the next measure, and this is the journey we will get into towards climate neutrality. And then the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Hospers Smit, as you might have guessed. I don't disagree with everything, but I do tend to be critical. But I have to disagree that I'm doing this alone, because I'm for sure not doing that. Lots of people here, but also lots of people online, and lots of people actually at work who are working on climate and helping us to do what we need to do. So just to set the scene there. Very shortly, we'll go into what we are going to do when it comes to net climate neutral dairy. So that's our long-term ambition, where we would want to be in 2050, the latest. I think the previous presentation has shown that there are issues to resolve there, and also that we do not know everything yet, where we need to go and how far can we go, how fast can we go, and so on and so on. But today focused on the dairy farms, or our member farms, I should say. So last year we published our On the Way to Climate Neutral Dairy plan. That was more or less the public aggregated version of what we already had in roadmaps and already were doing for quite some time. We had targets till 2020 earlier on, when it was about climate neutral growth. So we wanted to decouple our emission increase compared to our milk production and processing. That was more or less achieved. Just say this, heels over the ditch in good English. Climate plan that we published at that time. So the plan is aggregated level, total physical P and value chain. What are we going to do? Where are we? What do we know? What do we not know? What's the data quality, and so on and so on. Because you can imagine that when it comes to the stuff that's being shown today, we know pretty well, pretty accurately, what are the emissions at farm level. We also know that from our procured dairy, that we get from other parts of dairy. Once you come into the other categories, scope 1 and 2, where colleague Klaas Vos is really working on, we also know a lot, quite to a granular level. But when it comes to procured products, and also when it comes to this, battery is really low issue. The farther you go down in chain, especially if you go downstream, so towards our customers and consumers, then we for sure would know, we need to know better. Sorry about that. I'll continue. So what's the plan for the member farms until 2030? As you see here, there's a 33% reduction that we want to achieve from 2015 to 2030. Please bear in mind that we talk about megatons here. So all the previous presentations were about kilograms of milk, emission per kilogram of milk. And here also the numbers that you see here, the 30.8 and the 9 is with the old GBP numbers. So 34 for CH4 and always get 289 or 286, 289 for nitrous oxide. So very high over. Where we were in 2015 was about 13.8 megatons, member farms in Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands. In 2020, we were already going towards 12.3 megatons, which is nice. But then we need to take the next steps to get to about 9 megatons, or about 7.5 if we go with the new global warming potential. So how are we aiming to do that? We've broken it down into 4 main categories. The main category, the most important one, I should say, is the animal. So the enteric fermentation, the emission from the cow when it eats and excretes. There we look at working with additives, but also with better feed quality. Jeroen has explained a bit about grass quality and so on. So what can we do there? What do we expect that will bring us in the near future? So that's about additives. Also, another thing also mentioned already is about longevity and the replacement rate that we need. The longer that we can keep the cow in a decent animal health and welfare in a good way, but also producing enough that it is economically viable to keep the cow in the herd. That will also help lower the emissions. And the same, it is more a look into the future. What can we do with breeding? We'll come back to that soon. Then feed. It's about the feed composition, and then Lodi talked quite a bit about it already. It's about land use, and it's also about what type of cultivation do you have, how can you improve that, where can we go down on nitrous oxide. The cow is difficult, the soil is more difficult when you talk about reducing emissions, not even talking about carbon sequestration and how that interacts. It's a question I would ask to Jan Peter, but nobody did, so you got away there, Jan Peter. And then you talk manure, also very important. When you've seen the graphs there, that we went up quite a bit in emissions from manure systems. In theory, we could bring that to zero when it comes to stable and storage of manure. That's the theory. In the reality, we still have to do stuff, but that has a high potential. When you combine it to anaerobic digestion, you can also capture the gas or utilize the biogas that's there. So it has a dual nice edge, so to say. But it could also be done by certain types of treatment. There are pilots going on that look at capturing the warmth or the heat from manure, so cooling it, and then using that heat or that warmth to do something useful with. But by cooling it, you also lower the biological activity at that point, and that would actually more or less, conserve the manure quality. And there are other other issues there that could be options there that could be used. And then energy, it's rather low here because here the energy is about what the farm uses for energy for all the farm activities that are there. But obviously, our farmers are already very much involved when it comes to producing renewable energy. More than 3,000, almost 4,000 in the meantime, farms work on our solar program, so they have solar energy on their stables, and we use that energy to lower the emissions in our scope 1 and 2 emissions. So almost all electricity in the Netherlands is offset by production at farm level of energy, renewable energy. And when we talk worldwide, it's about 50% of the electricity that we use is being produced by our own farms. And obviously there's a green certificate stuff going on there, but it is actually produced and we actually capture that as well. So the number that we actually contribute to either Friesland as a whole or to society as a whole when it comes to renewable energy is much higher. But when it comes to footprinting and target setting, we cannot account for all of that in this number. So that's why you see it like this. So where are we now? Just a few examples. So Jeroen has mentioned quite a lot on the workshops that we have. We already had that pre-COVID, which was also quite successful. Then COVID came. It was a little less successful, so we're trying to capture that again and to ensure that we can help our farmers with that. You see something about Jumpstart, which is our program that we started 6 to 8 years ago, and about 6 years ago, I would say, where we wanted to help our farmers, but also want to ensure that the production of biogas can be professionalized or renewable energy using manure digestion. So we work together with a few biogas companies and aerobic digestion companies to ensure that technology was actually maturing much faster than it was, because before we started, it was about one biodigester in each province, and that was the example that should be done, but it's not standardized, it's high cost, maintenance is difficulty. So that's where we started on that. And now we are at this point at 43, I think, already installed, and 43 or even more coming this year and coming next year. So it's actually really getting higher quite fast, and that, yeah, again, that serves a dual purpose. Carbon. Pablo mentioned already the CCQ stuff. The first, it says here, the world's first carbon capture standard for cattle farming. That is the CCQ stuff. We do that with our colleagues and peers internationally, also to have a clear level playing field. So we should account the same way as our colleagues do, because otherwise nobody's going to understand it anymore. So that's stuff that we do there. The difficulties of carbon sequestration has been explained by Jan Peter. But we also work together with feed additives companies, DSM is mentioned here, but we also did that with a different additive with Barry Callebaut, which is one of our key customers when it comes to the business to business. So we work together. They want to see what can we do. We want to see what can we do, and together we look at what steps can we take. Well, obviously this is not enough. So what we need to do is keep building and building and actually scaling up. So we try to start small, or we try to start big, but it usually doesn't work. So you have to start small and then scale up in the hope that we are online towards our targets, at least for 2030. At this point, it looks okay. So what do we still need to do then? Obviously, we still need to, and all of us, it's not us, but all of you here and all of you online and all of us on the world, we need to build the innovation pipeline, to look at what can we do in each type of aspect of dairy production, but also the total dairy chain, both on a technological level or on the system level. System change might also be necessary. So what do we do? I've just captured a picture from the internet. You can find myriad of that, but at least we need to have a pipeline, and we need to work on the solutions of tomorrow if we are to be able to get somewhere near net neutral. It's going to be a challenge. And one example here, or two examples actually, is methane oxidation, which is to capture the biogas, not by digesting it, but just capturing it when it's either in the stable or in the storage coming out. And you can capture that, and you can either oxidize it thermally, so more or less burn it, or you can use it in a soil filter, which is common practice in the landfill sector, where methane emits, goes through the soil, and then the biology, so to speak, or yeah, is a good word. Anyway, the organisms in the soil, they oxidize it, so they use the carbon, they use the other stuff in the C and the H in the methane, and they oxidize it towards CO2, and then you have a lower emission, obviously, and you're back again in a short cycle. And another thing is the breeding. It is known that some cows emit more methane than others. I was told by the people from Wageningen University that we as a people, also about half of us emit methane and half of us doesn't. Still not sure if I emit methane. I haven't tried it yet, but apparently you can measure that. So not to say that we should have a human breeding problem that brings all kinds of issues that we shouldn't discuss it, but for cows it's more or less acceptable to have a breeding program. CFA is in the house somewhere, I see there. So we are working together with CFA and other companies as well, and Wageningen and all the universities also working that. If you can select, or if you have a breeding, how do you say that? Breeding goal, I think is the best word, on methane. So if you know which cows do emit more and which cows do emit less, you can try selecting to get the herd to a level that it emits lower of methane. It looks promising, but obviously it will take a long time before we actually get there. And the question is, how much can we go there? But okay, we are working on that. Other people are working on that. That's stuff that needs to be looked into because it is a relatively easy solution if it brings what we expect. So to conclude, you've seen this a few times already. We need to step up for a better climate. We as Friesland need to step up for a better climate. We all need to step up for a better climate. We have to start working together. I think we are still working together quite a lot. And there are quite a few opportunities to go farther, go faster, and to achieve our goals. And yeah, I think we feel in this group that presented today that we can and we need to do this, to take these steps. So yeah, wanted to leave to that.
Right, you can sit at the table because we are going to do another round of questions, and then after that we'll do the panel discussion. So just the speakers for now.